Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here. I'm doing this video because recently I had an interesting experience. It was Sunday. It was almost like 3:30 in the morning. It was technically Sunday morning or Saturday night, however you want to look at it. And I went to pick up my girlfriend. She was having like a girls' night out and stuff, and I went to pick her up and her friend, and we were driving back. We live in Detroit, and so for people who might live in the area, this was on I-75. It was like going southbound. It was like right near the exit towards the Ambassador Bridge, or that exit is on the other side. And so it's like 3:30 in the morning, and we're driving around. We're on the freeway, and so we go. Basically, during this turn, it's kind of like just a bridge, and it's really dark in this area. It's like pitch black, and we come around this bend, and we see this car like in the middle of the road, and it's like a 70-mile-per-hour road. So, unfortunately, I was like in kind of like one of the middle two lanes, so I was able to get over fast enough, and we hit like some debris because it was a huge accident, and after as soon as I saw like that car, like I noticed that there was another car like off, like right on the edge of the road. I guess that car may have been broken down or whatever. We kind of found out later, and after I saw this car, when we're driving, the first thing I realized is that it's pitch black, which means that there's nobody, no one's seen this happen. Like we don't know if it happened right before we got there or anything like that. We had no idea. And but it was like the first thing that I realized, like there's no one here, like it's pitch black, there aren't any cops, there's no fire trucks or ambulance or anything, which means no one's seen this happen. And so we pull over, and my girlfriend and her friend, they call the cops, and I get out and I check the two cars, and there's a girl in the first car, and the second car was actually empty. And going through that, it was a really crazy thing. It's something that I've never been in that sort of situation before. And being there, wondering like, what exactly happened, what's happening with this girl in the car. And just to say everything was fine. Fortunately, everything turned out fine. Just to kind of say that early on, I don't want to kind of say this story and, it ends really tragic. Everything was fine. Fortunately, she was okay. But being in that situation was really crazy. And, you see accidents and stuff all the time. There's something happens on the road or anything, you kind of drive past it. And being like the first car to stop was a really crazy experience because I didn't know, who knows what you're going to really see, because when I kind of like slowed the car down to move out of the way, when we realized there's a car just messed up in the middle of the road, I saw that someone was in it, but her car she hit it on her side, on the driver's side, and so it's really messed up, and there's like a tire off to the side and stuff like that. So I didn't know if she would be like pinned in or how crazy things were gonna be. And when I first saw her, I thought she did have like blood because it was so dark. I just couldn't see. I think it actually just ended up being like a shadow or something. But when I first saw her, I was like, it looked like she was bleeding to me. But I had to run to this other car because we didn't know if there were people in it or not. So it was like, all right, I have to check this other car because it was just like the three of us. And it was just a really crazy experience. And, we were trying to wake this girl up, and like I said, fortunately, everything turned out to be fine. And we don't know, we still don't know because it was kind of just like, we were there, and, there would be no reason for us to like go with her to the hospital and get the whole story. So I really don't know. I tried to look it up, to be completely honest, because it's hard not to be really curious about that sort of situation when you were involved in it so seriously. And it was just really crazy because it's in this area and it's so dark. And the crazy thing about it is, they always say stuff where it's like, oh, if somebody didn't do this or whatever, then this person could have died. And it was weird because we experienced like that may have actually been true if we didn't stop, because with it being the way it was set up, with it being like 70 miles per hour, there were a lot of cars coming around. Like after we got there were eventually people that started to come around, and this was something that really affected my girlfriend. Like a lot of people didn't stop. I mean, this was like I was I'm in the road, like there are people coming towards us going nearly 70 miles an hour around this bend, and I kind of have to like get in front of this car because it's pitch black, and I'm waving to like make sure that they can see me. And so there were a couple of times where I felt like, people were coming around this bend so fast. I kind of like moved back because I wasn't sure they'd be able to stop fast enough. I thought they might actually hit this girl in the car, and something really bad might happen, and then she'd be even worse off, and then someone else would be in trouble. And I did that like 3 or 4 times because it's like just this turn, and if it's not a really sharp turn, you don't really need to slow down that much. Like from 70 to 65 is zero difference to me when I'm like standing still and next to this car. So it's still super fast, and I feel like I had to kind of like get out of the way, and I was freaking out because my girlfriend came out near me, near the car, and I'm like, I kind of wanted her to go back to the car because I just didn't know what would happen. Like people were, kind of coming around this corner, and that was the thing. Like after everything was said and done, that was the thing that really affected her the most because there were a lot of people that just kept going. I mean, there were quite a few people that kept going before. I mean, really, only 2 cars stopped. There had to have been at least a dozen cars, total, like before the cops and everyone actually got there. There were a lot of people that kept going, and that really affected her, and it's something to really think about because it was a crazy situation, and like I say, everything said and done, everything was fine, but you don't know that when you're just going right past it. It's like there's one car out there, and maybe, for some people it's like there's nothing I could do, and that's why they didn't stop. But I don't know. I mean, I guess because it was different because maybe we were the first ones there. So if we weren't, I don't know. I mean, I can't honestly say like I know for sure I would have stopped, but I probably would have if there were no cops. That's a totally different thing. Like if I know that there are cops and stuff, it's like, well, there's nothing I know I can do. I'm sure they'd have a million times more experience. But if I see there's like a car, like I clearly see like because like I said, there were a couple of people, there were quite a few cars that went past us before 2 cars eventually stopped because there was and fortunately, the 2 cars that stopped actually happened to have 2 other people in it, even though we didn't, really technically need any extra help. But it was, a comfort in numbers sort of thing, I guess. But there were a lot of people that did go past us, and it was just a crazy situation being there and freaking out. Like, someone might come around this thing really fast and, hit this girl in the car. And it was just a really crazy situation going through that, and it kind of freaked us out. We're trying to like get her out of the car because um, she was unconscious. So I was like, I don't know if she was knocked unconscious in the accident or if she was like tired or fell asleep. Because like I said, it was like 3:30 in the morning, and you could tell based on how she was dressed, she like went out to party. So like I said, we don't know what happened. She could have been drinking. We really don't know. But when we were trying to get her up, she was just she was kind of like when I first like banged on the window. She like opened her eyes, and then she kind of closed them again. And the first thing I thought was, I don't know if that's from. I assumed that was from the accident because her airbag didn't deploy. But like I said, the front of her car was really destroyed. At least her side, like it was really, it had to be that she hit that car because it was on. On this turn, she hit that. This back of that car, and the back of the other car was crunched up, and her side was like, where she was kind of really messed up. And that's when I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know if she was knocked unconscious or exactly how everything played out. But, like I said, everything fortunately turned out fine. But it was really crazy because we were trying to, get her to wake up. And she was saying, like, oh, just let me sleep and stuff. So it was like, we don't know if that's her just having been, like, knocked unconscious. So of course, she had no idea what was really happening. And it didn't really hit her until, like, the fire truck actually got there because they had to use, like, the jaws of life to get her out of the car. And so they had to shatter the window and like get the door open and everything, and that's when I think it kind of hit her because she started to cry a little bit later when they were about to get her out of there. But it was just a crazy situation. We were trying to like break the window, which was really difficult, and it kind of makes me consider a lot of stuff that I just never thought of before because I've never been in that situation where I was like one of the first people to show up, there, and I have no experience with that. I'm not like a cop or a firefighter or anything, so I've never been in that sort of situation. And it was really crazy because it's like I don't know what could happen. And like when it really first happened, I was like I have no clue what to expect. And I like I said, when I first thought the girl that was bleeding, it was like, it ended up being like fluids and stuff on the ground, but it was so dark, and I was like, I don't know if this is blood or just random fluids from the car. I didn't know, what was happening in that situation, and it was just a really crazy thing to go through, and it was something something you never expect, and it's one of those things where I've taken this little turn a million different times, going from downtown, and it was just such a crazy experience, and it's so late, so of course, like I said, we were the first ones there, and then people kind of started to come past us afterwards, but it was just really crazy. It was just a crazy experience, and I wanted to do this video really to just talk about it, because it was something that doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen, where you might see an accident all the time, but how often are you the first person to pull over and see if people are even alive? You don't know you really don't know what you're gonna see, and it was crazy. And I guess definitely the girl was fortunate, because she could have been really hurt, especially with the way the car looked. And like I said, it seemed like she could have easily have been panned, and she seemed fine, and it was just a lot to see, and it's just really crazy. And then the stuff with all the other cars, people just going right past us, and it's very clear, like, it's two really messed up cars. It's like a huge thing, and I don't know. And like I said, I don't know. I mean, I guess because they saw us there, but I don't know. I mean, if you see me in the road, you can tell I'm not like some guy who has a ton of experience in life. I'm only 23, and I don't know. I mean, regardless of age, even if I saw like an adult, like like my dad or someone my dad's age, it just wouldn't have mattered. It's like I don't, when I don't see like official people there, like official city people, that's a huge deal. Like, that means that you never know what you'd be able to add to that if those people aren't already there. That's definitely when you should stop more than anything. And it was just really crazy, all these cars going past us, and freaking out. Like, the whole time, honestly, I was freaking out that we wouldn't be able to get her out of that car before someone came around and hit her, because people really were going, like I said, it's 70 miles per hour, and it's this turn, and it is pitch black, so you really can't see until you get around, because we did the same thing. And because, like I said, probably because I wasn't in the actual last lane, we didn't hit nearly as much debris as some of the other cars did, and people were coming around going the normal speed limit, really not even speeding, and just going the speed limit, but of course going from 70 to trying to slam on your brakes from like 70 to 0. That's a crazy thing around a turn where you can't see. It's not like it's just straight ahead of you. It's in like the worst position it could have possibly been in, because it's just that type of turn where you really don't see what's around it until you're already turning. And it was just a really crazy experience, going through that and really not knowing what was going to come of it, because we didn't know what to do. We never had experience with that stuff. And the girl being like, her kind of waking up and not realizing, what's going on. And she's like, everything's fine. Like, she was saying stuff like, my family's going to come get me and stuff. And I'm like, she really doesn't, clearly she doesn't really understand exactly what happened to her. And fortunately, my girlfriend was finally able to get her out, because she, kept tapping on the window while I was trying to, like, break the thing open. And the girl finally leaned over and opened the door. Unfortunately, like, right when that happened, that's kind of when the fire trucks and everything showed up. So we were there for a little bit, and we watched them kind of put her in the, put her on the stretcher and like give her a neck brace, because of course she did look fine, but that's one of those things where obviously, being a professional, you would know, like, let's give her a neck brace just in case, because all sorts of internal things, and you kind of want to got to be careful with people. So fortunately, everything turned out fine. At least it seemed that way, because like I said, externally she certainly seemed fine, and everything seemed okay. But it was just a really crazy situation to go through, and it's something that, for me, I was kind of there more for, or at least mentally, I was kind of there more just in the situation of what could happen that might be worse than it already is, because she, like I said, she seemed fine. And for my girlfriend, she really noted, like, because we were talking with the other people that did stop, and, we were shaking their hands and stuff, saying, like, thanks for stopping, because there were so many cars that went past us that it was kind of crazy, it's just so many people. And that really upset her. Like, it made her cry. After we got back home, it made her cry because there are so many people that stopped. And she also kind of went through that herself, having been in an accident, so I think that's why it affected her a lot more as well. But, you know, it's impossible not to notice because I definitely noticed that because I'm like, I'm like waving people. I wasn't exactly waving to try to stop people. It really was just to try to get them to not hit, this girl in the car. So I wasn't even thinking about people aren't stopping. I was just thinking like I don't want someone to shoot around this corner and hit her. And like when we were talking with the other people, they were saying like we probably did actually help a lot because like I said, like even when the guys I was talking to, when they were checking out like the other car which was further back, they felt like they had to kind of like jump out of the way because they didn't know because it was such a with the way everything was, you just couldn't see it until like the last minute, and people were just split second sort of thing. 70 miles per hour. You look to see any sort of random thing off to the side or look down or whatever. Even look maybe to change the station. Especially around this this turn. You never know what could happen, and so it was one of those crazy things where it's like we may have saved her. It's not to say like, oh, we're heroes or any of that crap, but considering I felt like I needed to jump out of the way, maybe we did actually help because it was just a crazy situation. Like trying to like be in complete darkness and like do like this to wave my hand so people can see like, oh, there's a human being like moving in the road, so that they don't hit this car that I'm next to, and really mess this girl up. It was just really crazy, and it was just an interesting experience, and it was something that I felt like I had to do a video on it because it was just something that I never would have expected to do. It's one of those things where it's like people would say it's like it's meant to happen to like my girlfriend had met up with her friends from college and just random girls night out, and that just happened to be why we were all together. And I'm glad it had to be that way because I really wouldn't want her to have to deal with that sort of experience on her own and be freaked out, especially because if I didn't, then she probably would have been along because her friend probably wouldn't have carpooled with her because it was because I was taking her. That's why her friend came over. So they may have still been together, but maybe not. It's just all all those different variables, and even though everything turned out okay, it still just freaks you out just how bad it could have been. Actually having been there, I guess that's why I think of how bad it could have been, even though ultimately everything kind of turned out as best as I guess it possibly could have. In the end, but it was just really crazy going through that, and I kind of just had to do this video because it was a crazy experience, and just going through it and all not even just the accident itself and being there, but really the stuff with all the cars going past us, and there were just a ton of people, and there was a car that stopped fairly early on when we were there. I guess I think they were like right behind us. I'm trying to remember because just the way everything happened, I don't exactly remember how everything played out in order, to be totally honest. But when I got out, I remember when I was like running from the second car back to the first one. I remember that there was another truck that was like on the other side of the road that stopped, but they left. Like they didn't get out. I mean, I'm sure they called the police because they were there for a bit, but they drove away. I guess they thought there was nothing they could do, and it was that was something I did notice. I didn't think about the other cars that went past us, but it's impossible not to think about that now, especially now that it's over. That is one of the big things because fortunately she was fine, and whatever was going on, if she was drinking or tired or someone could have roofied her. Who knows? There are lots of possibilities, and you just don't know. But with her having been fine and knowing that all kind of played out, that is kind of what goes through my head the most now is how many people really did pass us, especially with like I said, for me the big thing was the fact that it was still pitch black, which clearly meant there were no cops out there. There were no fire trucks, there was no ambulance or anything like that, and it was just interesting. It was just a crazy experience, and I don't know, I wanted to do this video to talk about it because I don't know, there's just a lot of things in my head about it, and I've been thinking about it since it happened, and it's something that I highly doubt I'll ever forget. being in that sort of situation, and especially being the first car, to stop. I mean, like the first person to get out and thinking all this crazy stuff. Like, I don't know what I'm going to see, and I don't know if things are going to get worse because this could have just happened, and who knows what might happen if this something happens with her car having been messed up, especially being in the front. All these different components, what may like kick up again, and what could start like a fire. It just all sorts of random things were really going through my head, and I don't know. I just felt like I needed to really talk about it and kind of just put it out there and just kind of share that story. So I want to really thank you guys for checking this one out. If you, I don't know, if you've ever been through anything like that, and you feel like you want to share it, definitely do. I don't know, it's just a weird thing. I mean, ultimately, I probably dealt with one of the easiest situations I could possibly have dealt with, considering there were hardly any injuries, at least visible injuries, and she wasn't like cut up or anything crazy like that. So I definitely dealt with kind of the small scale end of it, but just being there and not knowing, it was a really crazy thing to kind of go through. So really just wanted to share that. But like I said, thank you guys for checking this one out. Of course, like I said, if you've ever been through something like that, whether it's a civilian sort of thing like me, or if you do that professionally, or someone, and you feel like you want to share their story or share your own story, I would certainly appreciate that. But for the most part, I just wanted to really share that story. So thank you guys for checking this one out.